Bill Viola is one of the world's best-known and highly regarded artists working in video. His installations have been described as hauntingly beautiful. This year, Viola was selected to represent the United States at the Venice Biennale, where his latest work, Buried Secrets, is housed in the U.S. Pavilion. The exhibition will then move on to Arizona State University Art Museum for its United States premiere in February, and we're pleased to have this MacArthur Genius Fellow at this table. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Long Beach, California is home now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Tell me about video art, and what do we mean by that, and where is it in terms as an art form? I mean, it's in its infancy for sure.
Well,
or adolescence, or...
We're actually in a very interesting period right now. I mean, video was really first used by artists in the 1960s, actually. This was well before video became a household word in the country, and most people were familiar with it. There was some early technology that was developed by companies like Sony, which shrank the size of these very, very large, almost refrigerator-sized equipment that you found in television studios of the era. And artists began to discover this medium, black and white, rather crude by today's standards, but nonetheless with incredibly interesting possibilities in visual terms, and began using it. And so we're really at a period now where I think we can safely say that the early days of video are over. And in fact, if you think of a 20-year period, it's more than that now. I've been working in video for 25 years myself. But if you think of the 20 to 30-year period, that's about a good time to think of something maturing. And I think we're seeing now a second and third generation of artists who grew up with video, who are familiar with it, and who are using it very effectively.
I think of it here at the Whitney Museum. When you think of the other institutions, is it now significant a part of most major American museums?
Yes and no. I think museums like the Whitney have pioneered the use of video. They had a video gallery in the early 1970s, a space devoted just to video art in the museum. Museum of Modern Art is another one. In general, we're at a transition period now where, and I've been noticing this in my own personal work, where museums that have not really shown much video now are really looking at it as a very important art form, a very important medium that's very relevant to today, obviously. I mean, this is the video world that we're in, the world of CNN and instant communication and the internet and so on. So what artists are doing with these tools, you know, and they are tools. I mean, the interesting thing about a tool is that you can, you know, take for example, the common utensil, the fork. You can kill someone with a fork, or you can eat a meal with it. It's totally up to the user. I mean, the military uses a lot of these same tools that artists are using to, you know, to really express very meaningful and deep things about human life. So it's really an interesting period right now.
And who today are the most significant players and influences on video art?
Well, I mean, there's
yourself
a number.
In addition to yourself.
Yeah, there's a number of very, very good artists, and a number of my colleagues. Gary Hill is a very good artist. Mary Lucier, Dara Birnbaum. There's a number of Europeans, Marcel Odenbach. A number of them are in the exhibition that's currently up now at the Museum of Modern Art. And I think the influences on the field, the one thing that's very exciting about video that has turned me on since I first saw this glowing image, you know, way back in 1970, is that it can be so much, you know. If you think that what this electronic image can give us, can bring us, a message from the President of the United States that's going to change world history, and a moving pattern of abstract electronic imagery that's going to give you a purely visual aesthetic experience. And within that range, there's a tremendous range of opportunity and possibilities. And furthermore, what's really exciting is, I don't think it's been since really the Renaissance where artists have been able to use a medium that one could say is the dominant communication form of the society.
Where artists are able to use the medium that's a dominant communication form in society.
Yeah, the medium that I use as an artist to do the kinds of things that I want to do as an artist.
It's the same medium
that you people live with. It's the same medium that gives us CNN and all these other programs like this. It's really an extraordinary time. That hasn't existed historically in many, many years.
Where are you in your own creative process? You work a lot with family.
That's true, yes.
You know, why that? I mean, where does that come from?
Well, I think if I look at the work that I've been doing, I'd have to say that it's about transforming experience, transforming my experience. The one thing the video camera gave me that a pen and pencil and paper or a brush and canvas didn't when I was in art school was the ability to look at the real world through an open eye and to record events as they were occurring. And that kind of direct connection to life just liberated me so much from my art school training that I could just go out on the street with these new kind of portable cameras and open this eye and take in the things that you live with on a daily basis. They weren't rarefied, they weren't special. They were just real and direct and mundane. And as I've grown over the years, I have 2 kids now, 2 wonderful kids, and a wonderful wife, and that kind of effect of my life of that process of watching a child being born. I mean, I will never forget that as long as I live. That is an image that is just burned into my psyche. And that kind of emotional and psychic change that imparts to one. The same year my second son was born, my mother passed away. Those events have all become a part of my work because they are not necessarily about my family, my kids, my mother, but they are about the family, the mother, the children of which we are all a part of. And that's the kind of essence. If you can connect, this is where, you know, I don't pretend to be even begun on the work that I've done, and maybe I've hit a few things that have spoken to a lot of people, but when I look at the great artists in the past who are my inspiration, I can see that they've done something that clicks. They've hit something that is very specific and true to themselves, but it expands beyond who they are. It goes beyond that, and it can reach us. You can go to the Met, you can see Vermeer, you can stand in front of that painting that this man stood in front of several hundred years ago, and there's this like moment of communication that is just magical.
Who are those artists that have influenced you?
Well, one of my most deepest connections that I have is actually not with a visual artist, it's with a poet. There is a Persian poet from the 13th century by the name of Jalal al-Din Rumi, who has given the world some of the most exquisite and extraordinary literary masterpieces, who is not as well known here in the West as he should be.
And how did you discover him?
Through reading. I've always been interested in a very broad range of topics.
Yeah.
I think probably the last thing I would pick up to read would be an art magazine or an art journal. Yeah. But Rumi talked to me through the ages, and he has a way of just speaking in the most beautiful, profound terms. And William Blake is another one I've been very interested in, who's a poet as well as an artist. And of course the classics, you know, Velázquez and Goya.
Yeah. But Buddhism, your own Buddhism play a role? I mean, did one lead to the other, or? Well,
you know, I don't consider myself really a practicing Buddhist per se. I've had experience with it. I studied with a Zen master in Japan when I lived there in 1980. I think the ideals of that religion, the ideals of compassion and a kind of openness to things has influenced me a lot. And in fact, when I discovered more about Buddhism in an intellectual way, primarily through reading before I went to Japan and experienced it directly, I felt a kind of a familiarity there that I think, again, I mean, so many of the things we're looking for in life, you know, people say, how do I appreciate art? What do I do when I go in a museum? I don't know the latest ideas and stuff. Just like, get rid of that stuff. It's about you connecting with something in the most fundamental way. You know, it's like, I like this, I don't like that. You feel something inside you that brings you into a relationship with this thing. And I think that's the essential point. You know, you have within you, you know, we all have this creative power. It's something that defines who we are as human beings.
And artists seem to be able to touch it deeper and to offer it for others to connect with them more. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I was the class artist. You know, I grew up in Queens, and when it came time to paint the Pilgrims landing on Plymouth Rock, you know, with the hats with the big square buckles on them and stuff, I was the guy who did that. You know, I've always been doing that. I want to get this in before we get too far past here. This is, we're running out of time. The Greeting. Tell me about it.
The Greeting is a piece that's a part of the exhibition that's on now in Venice at the Biennial. And The Greeting is a work that was conceived as an image on the wall of a room. Other installation works I do involve the whole space with multiple images. This is a single image. And it was loosely based on a painting by Pontormo, who's a 16th century artist who I was interested in. And the interesting thing about it is that it's a very common social situation of three women. There are two women, and one woman enters while two are there, and they meet each other and greet each other. But the interesting thing about it, it was a shot at 300 frames a second, actually on film. Yeah. And so very simple, normal events that occur in flashes become extended as a kind of a choreography or a ballet in time.
Here it is. Take a look. Sound important?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sound is the basis of images for me. Do you ever watch TV and turn off the sound during the commercials?
Sure.
They're completely impotent. And sound gives this kind of weight to something. And for me, it anchors the image in experience.
Is video art going to change in part because of the technology that's advancing so rapidly?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
It'll give you more tools every day.
Well, you know, it's funny for me. I mean,
different canvases and all.
Yeah,
kinds
the
of
thing
things.
about it is I've been doing it for 25 years. What I'm doing today, that piece we just saw, other things, this is not the same medium that I started with. Yeah. In another 20 years, it's going to be different still. Create some problems for archival kind of issues and preservation issues, but you know, it's really interesting. And I think the works that are up in Venice, you know, show that there's a real range of works. Some of them use, you know, black and white projections on the wall. They're all really different.
How long does the Venice exhibition run?
It's going to close in October, in early October. And it was a really great project. I think the exciting thing about it was that the Arizona State University actually was the sponsoring institution of the Biennale this year. And in each year, there are curators are asked to submit applications. And the Arizona State University got it, and the curator and director of the exhibition, Marilyn Zeitlin, asked me to submit a proposal to do works, which then goes before a national committee, and you get selected that way. And so Arizona, being this rather small institution, it's a college art museum basically in Tempe, Arizona, was, you know, awarded this possibility for presenting this work, and you know, with museums like Philadelphia Museum and the Albright Knox and the Brooklyn Museum in the past have gotten that honor. So this was real special, and to work with them was really great.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure.
We thank you for joining us also this evening. For the next 2 weeks, we'll be away on vacation, and you will see a series of conversations that have taken place over the last year. Everybody from Dennis Hopper to Tom Murphy will be rebroadcast. We hope you enjoy them, and we'll look forward to seeing you after Labor Day. See you then.